Dave's in his company's benefits portal. He's 90 seconds into open enrollment, and he already knows exactly where he's headed before he's even read a word. The 401k section. He sees it. His employer matches contributions up to 4%. He bumps his own contribution up to match it without a second thought. Free money. Box checked. Decision made. Then he scrolls further and hits another account he barely recognizes. The HSA. Another payroll deduction, another decision to make, and he's already mentally moved on to the next tab. He picks a small number, just enough, he figures, to cover a couple of doctor visits and clicks next. In his head, it's basically a second checking account reserved for the pharmacy. That's not a crazy way to think about it either. Plenty of people use their HSA exactly that way to pay medical bills as they come up, and that's a completely legitimate use of the account. But the HSA that Dave just skimmed past in under a minute might be doing a lot more work than the 401k that he just felt so good about a moment ago. Dave is only eligible for an HSA if he's enrolled in a high-deductible health plan. That's the trade-off the account comes bundled with. But unlike a flexible spending account, the HSA belongs to Dave outright. It moves with him if he switches jobs, and nothing in it expires at the end of the year. An FSA, by contrast, usually belongs to the employer. Leave the job, and in most cases, whatever's left in that account gets left behind too. The HSA also comes with something neither the FSA nor a regular savings account offers. What's often called, fairly accurately, a triple tax advantage. Money goes in before taxes are taken out. It grows completely tax-free while it sits invested. And it comes back out tax-free too, as long as it's spent on a qualified medical expense. One of the most overlooked facts when calculating money savings from leveraging an HSA account is this. When you contribute directly from your payroll, the HSA skips payroll tax too. That means Social Security and Medicare, not just the income tax savings. A traditional 401k contribution doesn't pull that off. The HSA is one of the only accounts around that gets you out of both taxes on the same dollar at the same time. And once there's a cash cushion sitting in the HSA, most providers let you invest whatever's left beyond that, the same way you'd invest money inside a retirement account. Which raises a real question worth sitting with. If you're already paying a medical bill either way, does it actually make more sense to pay it from the HSA or from your regular checking account? Additionally, you don't have to submit that receipt right away for reimbursement. There's no deadline for reimbursing yourself from the HSA later. Pay the copay today straight from checking. Save the receipt somewhere safe. The HSA balance stays untouched, and it keeps growing, tax-free, the entire time it sits there. Years later, even decades later if you want, you can reimburse yourself for that exact same expense, pulling the cash back out of the HSA completely tax-free for qualified medical expenses. That only works, though, if you can actually afford to pay medical bills out of your own pocket in the first place. It leans hard on having real cash flow and an emergency fund behind it. Without that emergency fund in place, pulling straight from the HSA to cover medical costs as they happen can still be the right move, not a mistake, not something to feel behind on. There's another detail worth checking carefully during enrollment. If your employer also puts money into your HSA, that contribution counts toward the same annual limit you do. That employer contribution is worth remembering. It plays directly into the bigger comparison coming up next. So here's the real question that this all boils down to. Most people never take the time to actually understand. Is the high deductible plan really more expensive than the PPO? Or does it just look that way? Most people compare the two plans on premium and deductible alone. The high deductible plan's premium looks cheaper, but paying every doctor's visit out of pocket sounds intimidating. And in a genuinely bad year, that out-of-pocket max can run high. But that's not the full cost of either plan. The real comparison has to include what you'd actually spend out of pocket, plus what the HSA hands back in tax savings and employer money. So Dave pulls up both plans side by side and actually runs the math this time, instead of eyeballing it like he almost did. On the PPO, the premium alone runs him about $300 more a month than the high deductible plan would. That's $3,600 a year in savings on the premium with the high deductible plan. before he spent a single dollar on actual care. On the high deductible plan, his employer contributes $750 toward his HSA automatically, just for enrolling in that plan. Money he'd get for doing nothing else. Then Dave decides to contribute enough on his own to get to the yearly max. Between the income tax and payroll tax he skips, he estimates it saves him close to $1,600. That's a total of $5,950 per year in potential savings that Dave realizes throughout the year in premium costs, employer contributions, and tax benefits. Now say Dave has a genuinely high medical cost here. The only way the PPO comes out ahead is if his high deductible plan out-of-pocket spending runs about $6,000 more than the PPO's. That's right around his plan's actual out-of-pocket max. The plan he almost dismissed in 90 seconds as the risky, expensive option turns out, on paper, to be the cheaper one, once the HSA is actually counted correctly. That's Dave's math specifically for his plans in his tax bracket, with his employer's contribution amount and his plan's deductible and out-of-pocket maximum. Change any one of those numbers, and the answer underneath it can change too. So the real takeaway here isn't that you should always pick the high deductible plan, no matter what. It's that the comparison is worth actually running for yourself, instead of assuming the higher deductible automatically means the worse deal. One more consideration. After age 65, Dave can withdraw from the HSA the same way he'd withdraw from a 401k. It becomes an additional retirement account on top of everything else. The biggest reason Dave can fully lean into all of this is that he already has a real emergency fund built. That's what gives him the room to handle a reduced paycheck and whatever medical costs come up. Getting the full tax benefit means contributing the annual maximum. For 2026, that's $8,750 for a family. That's almost $800 a month coming out of his paycheck before taxes. On top of that, he's covering medical expenses out of pocket until he hits the deductible. Real costs that keep adding up over the course of the year. For Dave, right now, the fix is a lot smaller than an overhaul. Go back to the HSA section. Confirm the plan actually qualifies. Check whether the employer contributes anything at all. Look at the account's fees and what it actually lets you invest in once the cash balance clears whatever minimum the provider sets. Decide how much needs to stay liquid for near-term costs. Then Dave goes back into the portal one more time and actually reads the section he'd almost clicked past entirely. He doesn't overhaul anything about his plan. He raises one number, based on numbers he actually checked this time, instead of a guess made in under 2 minutes. This isn't a hidden loophole, and it's not a guaranteed win sitting there for everyone. It depends on your specific plan, your employer, and whether you've got the cushion to back the whole thing up. But the account you skim past during enrollment might be the exact reason the expensive plan on the list isn't actually the expensive one. It's worth 30 extra seconds to go check. This isn't financial advice, just something worth checking before your next enrollment window closes for the year. Take a real look at your own numbers and see what they actually say back.